We are gonna get started. I'm so excited to talk to you guys about gut health because for those of you who were here a little earlier while we were chatting, it's literally one of the most important conversations. You change your gut, you change your life. Specifically, it's gonna be focused around skin, but I want you to know that it is not just limiting yourself to skin if you are actually working or healing your gut. But I will start off with a little conversation. Has anybody ever spent a decent amount of money on some skincare products with the hopes that maybe it does a little something for the skin? Anybody?
I buy sunscreen, $4.99. I've been using it for 50 years. I never had a pimple.
Okay.
$4.99, wonderful.
Well, we've definitely been there, and we spend a little bit of money on skincare in hopes of it improving something, right? Statistics actually show that we spend about $8 per day on a variety of 16 products or more before we even leave our house. And this is for the average American. Kind of crazy, but we have been conditioned to become consumers. We have been trained to always look outside ourselves to fulfill some sort of internal process, right? And so it's really about shifting that mindset. This conversation is around helping you heal certain parts of your gut with the hope that it also heals your skin, right? But again, you heal your gut, you're gonna change your energy, your mood, your digestion, you're going to improve so much. So now it's really interesting to me that even with all of the nutrition dietitians that are out there, it's been really interesting that a lot of the information that I've been able to gather from a lot of them actually might lead people to unhealthy guts. And so today's conversation is to really unravel a lot of that. Now, who am I and why am I talking about this? My name is Rosemily. I go by Rosie as well. And I am a mind-body vitality coach. I work with clients either one-on-one, through virtual or in person. I work with them in group settings like this. And I also work with them through corporate wellness. I go, teach certain businesses. I work with schools and students, you name it, to talk all things health. And I studied at one of the largest nutrition schools in the world, IIN, the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. I studied hormone health as well as emotional eating psychology, a lot of mental health tactics, strategies, practices, you name it. And a lot of it came because I was as unhealthy as can be myself. And I was really determined to figure it out. I was about 45 pounds overweight, neck pains, back pains, leg pains, everything used to hurt. I was really moody. I was really in and out of depression for many years. And really, now that I've studied everything that I did in hopes of fixing what was going on with me, I realized a lot of it was probably because my gut wasn't in the best place as well. So that's really what I hope to share with you today. Now, I think it's important that if we're going to talk about your skin and your gut, right, and how they relate, it's important that we actually talk about your skin first and foremost. So your skin is actually your largest organ. It makes about 15% of your body weight. So it's kind of like a big deal. And you can really break it down in 3 general layers of skin. You have your epidermis, your outside, your protective layer. You have your dermis as well as your hypodermis, right? Your epidermis is your thinnest layer of skin. And within this layer, it is your skin factory. So at the very base of that epidermis, you already have some skin being produced. It moves its way on up until it hits the top where now it's actually your dead skin. And that is your lovely epidermis. You can have new skin in pretty much 4 weeks, by the way. Your dermis itself, this is where you'll find hair, you'll find sweat glands, you'll find sebaceous glands, also known as oil, your oil glands, and you'll also find blood vessels and nerve endings here. So anybody with tattoos?
One.
Okay, awesome. So this is a layer that has to be reached in order for you to have permanent ink. Otherwise, your top layer is just gonna peel on off after a while. It's also a little painful, right, to get tattoos? Even worse, has anybody ever had that little skin, like right at the edge of your nail, and you peel it doesn't hurt at first, and then you hit that one little, right? That's when you get to your dermis. So that is that layer. Then you have your hypodermis, also considered your subcutaneous fat. And as the name suggests, this is where you can find fat, and it helps cushion your organs, protects you, right? So all of these layers, they do really support in a number of functions. And I don't know about you guys, but I've definitely hit that point where I've maybe shaken somebody's hand or double high-fived them, only later to find that they're like coughing and sneezing all over the hand, right? I've seen it, it's all good. So this is one of those things that your body really wants to protect you against. It wants to keep you safe from external bacteria, fungi, like viruses, you name it. And hello, everybody. Anybody who wants to take notes, by the way, you are welcome to grab a note paper, as well as some pens that are here. And we're all hot from that workout, so feel free to grab some food and drink. Awesome. So yeah, your skin's function is to really support you and protect you, right? It protects the inside from the outside. Another great feature is that when you are nice and sweaty, like the crew that just came in, your body will send, from the dermis up, it'll send sweat so that as it evaporates, it helps cool you off. On the other hand, when you're really cold, your skin, the pores will tighten and your hair will shoot up, hoping to cover you a little bit more to keep you warm. And you also get a little shake, right? And this actually helps create a little bit of heat in your body to try to keep you warm. Outside of that, you have your subcutaneous fat that helps insulate. It's helping you regulate your temperature. Your skin is also the perfect environment to help synthesize certain vitamins like vitamin D, especially at your hypodermis. And of course, if you touch something hot, what's going to happen? What's the sound that if you touch something really hot? Right? A little sizzle. So it also protects you using its sensory data so that you are always aware, communicates with your brain, hey, something's getting hot, and it'll notify you right away, making you snap back. So these are just some of the functions for your actual skin itself.
I have a quick question, honey. So would subdermal, if you go back to the other.
Yeah.
So would subdermal patches with those vitamins that you put up there be better absorbed that way?
There are some vitamins that are better absorbed through the skin,
Yeah.
not, magnesium spray, but if anybody uses it for sleep as an example, there are some.
Vitamin D.
But, in general, another part of your brain, what it does is that, it's water resistant, so it keeps vitamins and minerals inside your body, right? So that it's sent through the blood vessels to your organs. Thank you for asking that.
Yeah,
I will encourage people, by the way, to save any questions for the end. I want to make sure that we have enough time to go through it. And I do have a really special guest that I'm really excited to share with you guys at the very end too. He's already, but amazing. So part of the way that your skin really protects you, a big part of that is through your skin flora, your skin microbiome, however you want to call it. It's beautiful bacteria that's all over your body. Your skin's environment is dry, it's oily, and it's sebaceous or oily. And this makes a perfect environment for your beautiful microbes. Research has actually shown that you have about 1,000 species living on your skin right now. And if you want to think it's a little creepy, you probably all even have little mice that are eating away at your dead skin right now. We need them, we love them, they're helping us. The problem is when they become a little imbalanced, this is where they can cause a little bit of trouble. Now, let's talk a little bit about the different types of skin and why it's kind of important to try to get to a little bit of a normal place, right? So everything comes down to sebum, or the amount of oil that your skin is producing. If you're normal, then you have a healthy balance of this oil throughout your skin. If it's dry, then you're lacking oil. At that point, your skin is a little bit more sensitive. You're actually more prone to infection. You might get a little redness right here and there. That's your dry skin. Oily is when you have too much sebum. So now you're maybe a little shiny. There's a little bit of grease, right, looking. And this often links to some sort of hormonal imbalance. It could be maybe too much sugar in the diet. It could be too much stress going on. All of this can help produce. They also suggest that it could be genetics, but whenever I hear that word, even though, yes, partially there are some gene factors included here, I like to think more about lifestyle habits that are passed on from family to family, right? Because if your family has kind of taught you to eat a lot of sugar, maybe it's a lot of cereals for breakfast, for example, maybe they haven't taught you how to manage stress very well, then chances are that you might be creating a little bit of hormonal imbalance within your body as well. So genetics, I like to think more lifestyle habits. But this is your skin in general. And honestly, your combination is exactly what it sounds like. It's a mix of dry and oily, either throughout different zones of the face or different zones of the body. Now, it is very normal for your body to have different zones, right? Like your hands and your feet might be a little bit drier than the rest of your body. That's totally fine. When it comes to just wanting to have a healthy, oily layer around your skin. Now, this really matters, especially when it comes to the gastrointestinal tract or your GI tract. Now, your GI tract starts at the mouth. No children, so we can say the word anus like adults here. But that is your entire process, especially through digestion as well. Now, your stomach doesn't have that much bacteria because of the fact that it's so acidic there. But your large intestine and your small intestine, they house the most amount of bacteria, your large intestine especially. And those are what you call your gut. Now, the gut is very important. So I shared with you about bacteria, right? But I'm going to tell you a little bit about what the gut's function is and the different types of bacteria that you might find here. To begin, your gut's main function is to absorb nutrients from the foods that you eat. That way your body can then spread it throughout, right? And you can be really healthy. That's the main function. But it also helps excrete waste throughout that process, right? And it likes to keep a healthy balance of bacteria. Now, there are different types of bacteria. We have what's called good or bad, or you can call it beneficial and harmful. Your beneficial bacteria, they're doing a really good job at, eating away at some of the foods that are in there. And again, it helps with your body's process. The bad bacteria, when they come out of hand, they overpopulate, they overgrow, they wreak havoc. You also have some bacteria that's considered a little bit more opportunistic. They're good up until they get a little too big-headed, right? Their army gets a little bigger, and now they start to really take over. This could be something as similar as H. pylori, about 2/3 of the US. Anybody ever heard of that, H. pylori? Okay, so about 2/3 of Americans have it, right? If it's under control, you're good. When it's not so good. Ulcers, it could lead to things like cancers. You can have, again, inflammation all over your body, really bad, severe stomach cramps and pains. So again, that's just an example of when things get a little bit out of balance. Now, when it comes to gut imbalances, there are some that are really common. Your small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, or your SIBO, this is essentially where your colon, the bacteria that's meant to stay in your colon, they start traveling over to your small intestine and they overpopulate here. And so that causes a lot of imbalance. You have gut dysbiosis, more general term. This is again where you have an imbalance of your good to bad bacteria ratio. You'll have a hypochlorhydria. This is where you're not producing enough stomach acids, and therefore this really wreaks havoc. Things that should have been caught in your stomach, for example, are now kind of continuing to leak through and cause havoc. Your parasites, yeast infections, those you just don't want to overpopulate. They can create a lot of inflammation. And also something like candida, right? If you consume a lot of sugar, that can lead to things like candida. And all of them essentially can lead to the one you really don't want, you don't want any of it, but leaky gut. It's actually more common than we would like in America. And this is at that point where now your intestinal wall has been leaked, right? There's more spaces where now bacteria is making its way into your bloodstream, and things that should remain in your bloodstream are making it through interior intestines. And the reason that this is really alarming is because this can lead to a lot of, definitely don't want things to be where they shouldn't be, right? Our body likes order, likes to be in balance, it likes homeostasis, but this can really cause a lot of food sensitivity. So if you've always been okay eating a little tomato, now suddenly you're like, or you're finding yourself with certain foods that you've always been able to eat, but now like for some reason you can't, that can definitely happen. It could lead to things like autoimmune disease because your body starts to see things that shouldn't be where they are and starts attacking. So all of these can cause a lot of different symptoms, from really, really poor energy through really feeling like super hungry all the time. It can lead to things like mood disorders, depression, it can lead to a lot. But because we're talking about skin, it can lead to a lot of different skin conditions as well. Acne, facial redness, psoriasis, eczema, those are pretty much like the more common. In fact, the most common of all of them is acne. 85% of people will experience acne at some point in their life. Has anyone not ever experienced acne? Amazing. Yeah, you said that earlier. Okay, we have two.
Does that mean like never?
Three, amazing. Huh?
Like never had a pimple?
Like never had like little breakouts here and there.
No.
Okay, awesome. Amazing. I love it. I would just like to ask, just curious.
Sadly, like my son, right? He faces a mess. So he doesn't really need the mess. So is it coming just from, even if a 13-year-old is healthy, they wouldn't have it? Or is it because they kind of?
Sometimes it's through the hormonal changes too, right? Hormones will cause acne to definitely show up. So it's not only inclusive of some sort of imbalance. The same way that if you've never experienced some sort of skin condition, it doesn't mean that you've never had some sort of bacterial overgrowth, right? Everybody's different. Your body fights things off differently. It might show up in different ways. But what's really interesting about acne is that a number of studies, they actually found people with acne, more than 50% of them actually had that small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. And once they actually conducted different protocols for their gut, about 40% of them recovered. They recovered twice as fast. And for the people who started to introduce fermented foods, which we're going to talk about 40% found feeling better. So it really does come down to taking care of your gut health the best way possible. And I'm going to share a lot of different ways that you can do that, a lot of different foods that you can introduce in order to feel your absolute best. Awesome. So we're going to be able to talk through digestive enzymes. We're going to talk about healing foods, polyphenols, probiotics, prebiotics, supplements, and some foods to definitely try your best to avoid, especially if you suspect or find or go to your doctor, which is what I would recommend, and identify that you definitely have some bacterial overgrowth. Depending on the doctor you go to, they'll definitely tell you got to cut certain things out. So your digestive enzymes, they're really important. They're produced primarily in your pancreas, your endocrine glands, and they find their way in through basically through your gut. And why they're so important is because they're different proteins that are actually found in a lot of foods, which we're going to talk about, and they help with the breakdown of the foods that you are consuming. You have about 22 digestive enzymes, and they all have a very specific role when it comes to the foods that you eat. So if you're consuming carbohydrates, they're going to break them down into glucose, hence why people that have gut problems will sometimes struggle with energy, right? Certain things might not be breaking down easily. Same thing with proteins and fats. These are so important because not only Do they help produce healthy hormones? So you want that. But at the same time, you need them for healthy skin. Protein and healthy fats are so essential for beautiful, glowing skin. So if your body can't break these down, you can see how that would be a problem. Now, some foods that actually help support digestive enzymes, raw foods. They're pretty much found in most raw foods, right? Once you cook food, you kill their enzymes. And so this is where adding in vegetables and fruits will really support. Soaked raw nuts or fermented raw nuts and seeds support. Raw cultured dairy, raw manuka honey, and if it's not manuka, which is a better quality honey, then you can definitely just turn to raw honey in general. It will support. You want to be able to also correct any magnesium deficiencies, but this is where I always recommend that you see a doctor so you can identify if it's a problem, right? And you want to be able to supplement with digestive enzymes if, after speaking with your doctor, they recommend that that's the best route. But I always say food number one. Now, one thing I didn't add in here that just hit me, I told you that the process of your digestion really starts at the mouth, right? So a simple little thing that you could do is just really be mindful and chew your food better. Digestive enzymes are produced, right? They're actually in your saliva. The more that you chew, the more digestive enzymes that are produced wrap themselves around your food and make their way down to actually support with that process. I've had clients where I've literally just worked with them on being mindful eaters and they improve their digestion by so much. So that's a really important note that just hit me. So next thing, I always preach again, food first. Let food be thy medicine and medicine thy food by lovely Hippocrates. So I'm going to share some foods that really support with healing your gut. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about them. So to start, you have your bone broth. This is a really easy one to add in. Now, when I say bone broth, I don't just say grab any bone broth. You always want to look for quality over anything, right? You want it to be from either pastured or grass finished, right? Meats, poultry. That's the kind of bone broth that you want. And you can either sip on it as it is, you can include it in soups, stews, right? You can cook with it in different ways. Well, that's great because it's got collagen. Have we all heard collagen is great for our skin? Yes. Okay, I see Lush. Yes, amazing. It's also really great for your gut. It actually helps repair your gut lining. So this is an easy one you can do. You're gonna see some fermented foods here, your kimchi, sauerkraut, kefir. These are all really easy to add in and incorporate. I'm gonna talk a little bit more about them later. You have Swedish bitters. It's an herbal tonic that supports as well, especially when it comes to the acidity. And you have good old coconut oil. It's an antimicrobial. It's so good for also repairing your gut. So this is a great option. I'm going to talk a little bit more in detail about oil later on as well. So these are some quick and easy, add-ons that you can easily incorporate. Now, talking more about foods, there's something called polyphenols. They're plant compounds. They're found in certain foods. And really, the trick is with them that they're not fully digested easily until they actually make their way to your colon. And that's where that bacteria, your beneficial bacteria, will eat away at them and they help build up their colonies, right? They build up healthy, beneficial bacteria. Now, this is where I do want to stress, who was here for last month's topic? Amazing. So we spoke a little bit about the dirty dozen and the clean 15. When I talk about fruits, especially your berries and a lot of different vegetables, I always recommend organic, all right? Pesticides, herbicides, they kill tiny little pests, right? That also includes your bacteria, little guys that are in there. So you want to make sure to protect them. This is where going organic is always best. Your blueberries, strawberries, like all of your berries are always #1 on your dirty dozen list, like top. So definitely go organic for those. And if you're that kind of person that grabs maybe a yogurt parfait somewhere on the go, right? This is where I recommend like take the 2 minutes, make it yourself. Grab, actual fermented like yogurt and put in your own berries to make sure that you're using the best products. Because a lot of restaurants, cafes, bakeries, they're just trying to make money. They're not thinking, let me buy organic produce, right? Some might, but the average doesn't. So just a little tip there. Foods that you can add really quickly, your onions, those are really quickly, walnuts, almonds, you can throw them in anything. Chia flax seeds, throw them in your smoothie. Really great substitute for oats. Instead of oats, use chia and flax seeds. Overnight chia, overnight flax seeds, these are great. Very easy spices, turmeric, cinnamon, oregano, add them in to smoothies. I literally put turmeric on my eggs with a little pepper so that it's intensified how much I absorb. Cinnamon, also great for blood sugar. So these are great spices you can add in. The last thing I want to talk about, who likes chocolate?
Love chocolate.
Amazing, lots of hands. Do we like chocolate online? Who brings in a little hand or type it in? So listen, has anybody ever heard that when you eat chocolate, you're like, you break out, you can't eat chocolate, you break out? Who's heard that?
I've heard.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm here to tell you it's not the chocolate, okay? But I'm gonna go into detail about chocolate because I love chocolate too. So when I'm talking about cocoa, I'm not saying go out and buy like, M&Ms. I'm not saying go out and buy your Hershey's. I'm talking about like pure, high quality chocolate. Talking about that dark chocolate, right? I'm thinking organic, I'm thinking top-notch quality, 80+%. It's a little bitter, but the most important thing about it is that you look at nutrition, the ingredients, you look at where's sugar at. Because I promise you it's not the cocoa that's the problem, it's the sugar and the type of inflammatory oils that are added into your chocolate that are causing the breakout. So I'm on a mission to make sure to tell people this. Chocolate's amazing, y'all, okay? So this is really what's causing a lot of the acne or skin blemishes that's popping up. So quality cocoa is good, all right? Full of antioxidants, it has magnesium. Anybody ever crave chocolate? Okay, it can sometimes be because you have that deficiency. Your body's like, ooh, I know where she can get it. Crave chocolate. Your cravings are always trying to tell you something. So I've made my peace with the cocoa conversation. We can now move on. So I spoke a little bit about fermented foods. Those are your probiotics. They are rich with bacteria that your body actually wants. What I really want to stress here is, number one, if you're buying pickles or sauerkraut and they're in the regular shelf where they're not refrigerated, they do not have bacteria. They're not fermented, like they're not good for your gut. Do not buy those. I'm talking about the ones that are in the refrigerated area and will specifically say fermented or probiotics or live cultures or something along those lines. When it comes to your kombucha or anything that you're buying, what I do like to recommend is that you don't stick with just one brand or one thing every single time, because that one brand might have a specific colony that they're using. And again, you want balance, you want diversity. So I encourage people to try different brands, right? Look up what are the top quality brands for some of these foods. Switch it up so that you're diversifying, you're adding a healthier colony of bacteria. Now, it's also really easy to make. Like, it's so easy that you would be like, why am I buying this? And I'm actually really curious. I wanted to ask a question. Would it support to have a class on making your own probiotics? Just out of curiosity, who would be interested in something like that? You can raise your hand. Awesome, cool, thank you, appreciate it. Even down to like kefir and yogurt, it's so easy. So yeah, I encourage you to go online, find research, do it yourself, because you're probably gonna have more healthy like bacteria being produced in them.
And it's cheaper.
And it's cheaper, yeah. Something like your kefir grains, like yogurt and kefir, they literally just keep producing on their own. You buy those grains once and you have it forever. You're gonna be spreading it to people everywhere. So fun little fact. All right, so we spoke about probiotics, right? You gotta feed the little guys. Most of them, they're mostly vegan. So you wanna be thinking about adding a lot of fruits and vegetables to make sure that we're feeding them. Now, prebiotics are a type of fiber, but not all fiber are prebiotics. So it's very specific, the types that you want to be able to incorporate. And again, it's because they don't digest all the way, so they help feed the little guys once they get deeper into your digestive process. And really easy ones to add in, garlic, onions, right? You could just dice them up and throw them in anything. Your berries again, so these are really quick ones that you can add into any meal of the day, honestly. Now, before I actually get to this, I do want to add this in too. Your bacteria, they don't want to experience a lot of stress, right? So other things outside of food that you want to be able to think about is managing stress for yourself, because as soon as your cortisol levels spike, which is a really acidic hormone, it can like hurt some of the good beneficial bacteria. And again, it can kind of give ammo to the harmful bacteria and help them kind of grow. So if you're dealing with a lot of stress, you want to be able to think about ways to manage it a little bit better. Breathing strategies, I can talk all day, but definitely do your due diligence and look up how to do that, okay? Now, foods to avoid. This is the part of the like, nobody ever wants to hear, because like, man, I eat this every day. But we got to, so we're going to. Now, last month, I told you the #1 most allergic food. It is your good old milk. It is definitely the #1. If you wanted to take anything out and make a difference, it's this guy right here, right? Highly inflammatory. It can lead to leaky gut. And I get it. It's really addicting. I understand. Literally an opioid, really. And it's strategically done on purpose, by the way. Nature knows what it's doing. Have you ever heard of someone's baby turning away their milk, the mom's milk? Have you ever?
Yeah.
You have.
Yes.
I've never. You're the first person
Yes.
in all the times that I've asked that has ever said that.
Back in the day, my mom said that's why they had wet nurses, because a lot of times the baby would reject that.
Oh, like they wouldn't latch.
No, they wouldn't, there was a problem, so.
Interesting.
Yeah, they would always have someone in the family that would be the wet nurse.
You are the first person to say that. Interesting. So here's the thing about milk, right? It is literally made to be addicting. Anything that's dairy is made to be addicting so that the baby enjoys the taste and actually latches and drinks. It's been part of why humans have survived, because babies always love the milk. It actually helps build a connection with the mom if you're staring at each other. And so I get it that milk, dairy in general could be a little hard to break away from, but it's the #1 ingredient you definitely do that with. It totally impacts your gut lining, and you will eventually experience something like leaky gut if you're doing it consistently.
And you say the same with it's 2%, low fat, heavy cream, just all.
And last month I spoke about really the process of pasteurization. It was caused a lot of the problems that we see today. Yeah.
Treat the okay, the shot.
Right.
Yeah.
I wish that could be true on your haircut. I would be. It will like literally help, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Is that
Um,
cow milk or is it?
It's primarily cow's milk, So dairy definitely one. I'm gonna say the really tough one for last, your wheat. We're gonna talk about all of these. Listen, for some, it's about finding the balance, right? We'll talk about alcohol first. How about that? So. So when it comes to alcohol, there's a few problems, right? For one, it actually blocks your digestive enzymes. So here you are drinking and it's actually preventing you. And you know what I hear a lot too? Man, I thought that by eating, I was actually helping some of the alcohol, which is what I hear a lot. But actually, whatever you're eating, the alcohol is actually blocking you from being able to absorb the majority of the nutrients that's found in that food to begin with because of that. But on top of it, you know, most of them packed with sugar, if you're drinking alcoholic beverages, right? Packed with all sorts of added fillers. And in general, if you have more than one drink, right, it's really taxing on the body. It causes a lot of inflammation. Anything that causes a lot of inflammation, it's not good for your gut health either. It causes stress in the body and therefore stress in the little good guys. Now, a tip is, if you're gonna have a drink, right, have water at the very least, just to support your liver at least, guys. Have a full glass of water before you have your second and top it and max it at 2, you know, especially for.
I drink, I'm going. Sorry.
Yeah, so, you know, the wine of today is not the wine of yesterday, you know, you gotta realize there's a lot of sugars added into that, and there's all of that stuff that they tell you, it's so good for your heart. Maybe some high quality ones.
Your grandfather used to.
So that's pretty cool. Now, when it comes to your soy products, your corn, highly genetically modified, like 90% of them in the Americas are genetically modified. Automatically, that's been linked to a lot of issues with your gut health, your gut lining in general. And some people will say like, okay, well, there are a few fermented options. Whenever it comes with soy, I would recommend go organic, but even then, just limit it every once in a while. And your corn is a type of grain. We're gonna talk about grains in general. I'm gonna save that for last. It's always a big conversation. But I would obstruct that one or really reduce it if you're really struggling. You're like, man, I love corn. I have it every day. Next, we spoke about sugar, how it really, you know, it ages your cells, it hurts your gut. So that's one of those to really limit. And they're usually packed with highly inflammatory oils, any kind of processed foods that are high in sugar, packed with inflammatory oils, which brings me to vegetable oils. So vegetable oils in general, they go through so many different processes just to be made. And I'm talking about, you know, vegetable oil, corn, canola, all of these. Some of the processes also include bleaching it. You can imagine how that is not good for us. And unfortunately, because they go through really high heat in order to be produced, they're more of a byproduct than anything. They are really inflammatory. The problem is in most, especially boxed products that you're buying, right? Processed foods, whether it's cereals, whether it's cookies, whether it's breads, whatever it might be, they usually come with these kind of oils because it's really inexpensive. And these are really causing a lot of acne, a lot of skin issues, and that's because it's really interfering with your gut. It can cause a lot of inflammation, swollen ankles, swollen hands, swollen faces, you name it. So that's one of those. I encourage you to start looking at the ingredients and see what are the types of oils that are actually in there. That also includes seed oils. Again, anything that's going through a really high heat process can be really taxing on the body. So where are we? Oh my goodness, I have to share this story because I tell her all the time. I told my client, I talk about you all the time, by the way. So I'm running this group program and we're talking about gut health. And one of my clients tells me, Rosie, I'm having a hard time because after I eat, I literally pass out. Like I pass out, and it's been really embarrassing because people at work will find me falling asleep and they're like, I'm literally about to get fired. I don't know what to do. So I immediately, I'm like, this is 911. Like you literally just pass out. She's like, yeah, I don't even realize half the time that I pass out. I call her. I'm like, all right, we got to talk. Tell me a little bit about what it is that you are eating. What are you doing? She tells me she puts about 9 to 10 stacks of Splenda in her coffee every single day. And I'm like, oh my goodness, my darling, you got to go see a doctor ASAP. She told me a lot of other symptoms going on. And it turns out not only ulcers, but she had so much going on that was wrong. She's still trying to fix it. And it's been a year. So artificial sugars has been one of the biggest lies about it being healthy. It actually causes things like insulin resistance, by the way, the very thing that it was originally created to avoid. And it kills your gut lining. So just don't do it. You're better off opting for the organic cane sugar, if anything. Last one, wheat products. Okay, do not attack me. I'm just letting you know the truth, okay? We love our breads. We love our oats, right? How many of us have heard oats are so healthy? Eat them every single morning. They're great for you, right? What they don't tell us, well, you know, again, who knows who's teaching them? Who knows who's funding whatever programs that's teaching them, right? Big pharma, food industries, they run the world. But that's another conversation. So a lot of these grains in general, whether it's your bread, whether it's your oats, no matter what it is, you're right? Not only is gluten the issue, for a lot of them, it's something called gliadin. It's another type of protein, and it often goes missed. So if you've ever taken one of those like tests on, the allergy test, you might be told, oh, you can eat gluten, you're totally fine, when in reality, it might actually be causing harm down the road. Another thing that's within them is something called lectins. It's a plant's natural pesticide, right? Let's call it that. And your plants, they also want to protect themselves from bugs naturally. And one of the ways they do that is through lectins. And when you're consuming foods that have a lot of grains or a lot of lectins, a lot of gluten, they are inflammatory. Your little guys are dying because of it, right? The good ones. And it's causing a lot of inflammation. And worst of all, it's causing a lot of leaky gut problems, right? It's damaging your gut lining and now allowing bacteria that shouldn't be into your blood and vice versa. So yes, last month we spoke about how not everyone needs to go gluten-free, right? And a lot of the products that are marketed as gluten-free are probably spiking your blood sugar index or your glycemic index more than other things, more than the grain itself. But the reality is that you want to enjoy these in moderation, especially when your gut is healthy. It's not about having them every single day. There's so many delicious foods that you can substitute them with, especially whole foods, that will treat your body so much nicer and so much kinder. So there it is. Even with your oats, it's a common problem. And I would always recommend, if you're gonna do oats, right, organic at the very minimum is always best. And even if, gluten-free options, even though they don't contain gluten, I recommend it anyways, but always organic for sure. And Quaker's one day gonna come after me, but don't buy Quaker, okay? They have the highest amount of glyphosate found than any other brand, which is just like weed killer. I don't know about you guys, but I like to not have weed killer with my, you know what I'm saying? So those are your foods to avoid. Now I'm gonna talk about supplements very, very, very briefly. And that's because I do always say, change your nutrition first and foremost, change everything, right? I think supplements is one of those things where you always want to speak with your doctor first and foremost. I'm really not going to talk about these. You're welcome to snap a picture, but glutamine is probably the most common. Again, taking probiotics is an option, especially after you've spoken with some sort of physician, but you can snap a picture. I always recommend, if I haven't said it enough, I'll give you another second to snap away. If I haven't said it enough, number one and most important is that you always consult your physician prior to starting. God forbid that there's something else that's going on and you're starting this protocol and suddenly you've just created a worse scenario for yourself. So number one. Now, it's not just any kind of doctor. This is a big part on how I want to end here. There's such a thing as the regular doctors that we're seeing, and then there's such a thing as a functional doctor. Okay, your regular doctor, they treat symptoms and disease, right? That is what they go to training for. They really see the body as multiple systems, and that's why you might be put through the ringer. You got to see this specialist, you got to see this specialist, you got to see this specialist. And a lot of times they don't communicate very well. They might even have different opinions on what's happening, and you're kind of just put through the ringer. I say this from a lot of experience. I've seen it with a lot of my clients. They get really frustrated and they don't know what to do. One person's telling them it's this, another person's telling them that. This is really common. And unfortunately, the way that they test, there's always, I want to say always, let's exaggerate, very often, they're not doing the right testing that's required to even find out what is at the root cause. I see this a lot too. When I want to go and share blood work information with doctors that I work with, they're like, this isn't enough, Rosie, this isn't enough. The testing just isn't quite the same. And they obviously use a medicine first approach because they have really poor education on nutrition. I'm not knocking the regular doctor, even though it sounds like it, I'm not. There's a time and a place for them. It's really important that you go to them. If you break an arm, you break a finger, you break a toe, you're bleeding somewhere, you gotta go see a regular doctor. Do not go to your functional medicine doctor. However, I definitely think that if something doesn't feel right when you're working with your regular doctor, if they don't have a more natural or holistic practice, I encourage you to keep exploring until you find a regular doctor that does understand that food is healing, right? However, if you're like, I don't want to be going around everywhere asking different doctors, I highly recommend instead a functional medicine doctor. This is one who will actually identify the root cause, grabbing information from you, right? Asking you lots of questions and really understanding the big picture because they see the body as one system. So you're more likely to have one doctor from start to finish. And they're gonna have really thorough testing for many different markers that the regular doctor would definitely have missed, as I see time and time again. And they really use food or supplements, right? Also nutrition and lifestyle factors as a first approach to things. Obviously, if you need medicine, they're gonna tell you, like, if that's the only way, you're gonna know. But they really have an elevated knowledge on nutrition and they really see that food is medicine and medicine is food. And I told you earlier that I had a special guest, so we're gonna actually have a functional medicine that's here, that's gonna talk to us and give us a 10-minute Q&A. So that's huge because you'll be able to ask any questions, especially if you suspect something like with your gut might be a little off, or in general, if you wanna just know more about what a functional medicine doctor does. Now, the last part here is I hope that you've enjoyed this conversation about gut health and skin health. If you have, and you're like, I love all these conversations that are happening, which I hear very often, then please know November 9th, mark it on your calendar. Being mindful in the midst of chaos, that's definitely how to manage stress, how to navigate, right, the ups and downs of life, especially November, we're family soon enough, right? Family conflicts start happening. And then December 7th, learn to stop overeating. So we're gonna get to that Christmas dinner and the New Year's, and we're looking at the plates like I know I've had two, but like I wanna keep going. So we're gonna be able to have a lot of tips and tricks on how to stop overeating. So that's happening soon. And without further ado, here's information. Here's information if you want to stay connected with all of the things that I share. There's so much information on health and well-being online. But with that being said, I would love to welcome the functional medicine that I go, a doctor that I go to that I trust more than anything, that has been that has been so incredible. I'm gonna really let you introduce yourself.
Hello, everybody. I'm Dr. Dylan DiLorenzo. Let's give a round of applause to Emily.
Yeah, good job, Pretty.
Oh, thank you. Come on.